Hello everyone, my name is Sister Dimpna Doran. I've been around this parish for a long time and I'm usually known as Sister D around here because my Irish name is not that easy to pronounce. But anyway, I also have been serving in Prescott and in Flagstaff, in South Phoenix at a little school that was there in the time of the Diocese of Tucson. There was a Sacred Heart school down there. I was there for a few years. And I served at St. Jerome Parish at its beginnings. And so I kind of I was the youngest sister that time, and so I kind of got moved around. Wherever there's a slot to fill, let Sister D go, okay? So anyway, what I'm doing here today is really telling you my vocation story and a little bit about the beginnings of life here at St. Simon and Jude for the sisters, and you know how it all seemed a big change from our move from Ireland. And so just to fill you in on some of the early times and how I came to be here anyway. Okay, so I gave this little talk before at the Sarah Club dinner. It was a dinner for the priests and religious priests and sisters and brothers of the diocese. And they had asked me to speak because it was my 60th anniversary that year. So I gave my vocation story. So I'm going to share it with you now. And it's rather personal in ways, but that's how God is with us. He's personal. So I'm going to let you know the whole truth. Okay? As I said, I've been here a long time, and not as long as the dinosaurs, but almost. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, I was here when it was the Diocese of Tucson before it became the Diocese of Phoenix. So I came in 1959. So I was only a few years in the convent in Ireland at the time. But talking about my religious vocation, I was thinking every vowed religious person really knows that it's all about the grace of God. The grace of God that is given to us, grace upon grace, as it says in John, the letter of John, verse 16. Freely given, it's freely given by our loving God. And we don't earn it, it's just given, it's gift. So I think that we, religious sisters, brothers, priests, usually have a personal Pentecost, a special, strong wind of the Spirit that blows through, and a special grace that urges us on and convinces us that God is calling us to a closer walk and a wonderful life totally consecrated to Him. And we do speak of our profession, our first profession, our final profession. Being a religious is our profession, our main profession. No matter how many jobs we might have had, we might have been, as I am now, a pastoral associate, or I was principal of a school, 2 schools actually, or you might, some sisters might be home visitors or healthcare providers or servants of the poor, whatever your profession really is, your main profession is being a dedicated and committed, consecrated, religious person. And only the grace of God brings that about. And I'll tell you how it evolved for me. Many, many years ago, of course, it's a long time since I was a young lady, but I was a young lady at a Loretta Sisters High School. And yes, it was Navan, Ireland, and Navan is the place where the sisters came from to come and staff this parish. But I was privileged to be having this wonderful education with the Loretta Sisters in that school, which was considered at that time and still considered to be a very high class, good convent school education. And I was blessed to have wonderful parents, holy parents that were a good example to me, and they led by example. And of course, we were a big family, and you know, in those days, it was post-war days when I was growing up, and most products came into Ireland through England. So a lot of things were rationed. It was hard to raise a family, and a big family at that, and put food on the table and rear all those kids. I'm one of 14. Yeah, I did say 14, in case you missed it. I was number 9, and we were seven brothers and 6. I have 7 brothers and 6 sisters, or I had. Some of them are gone to God now, but that was our family growing up. So the lessons of sharing and waiting your turn and sacrificing a bit and thinking of others first, you know, were lessons that were not just nice things to learn. In a big family, they were a necessity. A necessity, you just had to learn them, or your parents really made sure you learned. So I remember my home as a place of love and happiness and music and holiness too. Only it wasn't a big ostentatious holiness. It was just part and parcel of our lives. The picture of the Sacred Heart of Jesus was over our mantelpiece in the kitchen, and that was like almost the focal point of the house. And the older children got to light it when it went out. It was always lit, and we kind of look forward to our turn. Prayer was important in the house, and my parents led the way. If some of us children kind of peeped down the stairs at night, pretending we needed a drink of water or something, we would see my parents kneeling each side of a chair pulled out in the middle of the floor, they kneeling each side of it with their rosary beads, saying their rosary, because that's what they did before they went to bed. So, religion was really important. My brothers were altar servers. The girls were in the church choir. I was in the church choir from the time I was 8 years old, maybe 7. No, 8. I think I was 8. And my mother had been a substitute organist at the church. She played the piano. My dad played the piano. She played the organ. And we were often singing, and my mother was she's singing her way around the house. Sometimes Irish songs, and sometimes hymns, sometimes, this old singer, Gracie Fields. She loved Gracie Fields. She'd be singing all Gracie Fields songs. So, and some of us would be playing the piano, our favorite tunes. There was always music in the house. And I may have filtered my memory a bit, but I really do not remember really, really bad days. So, I graduated from Loreto High School in Navan, County Meath in 1956. And I knew that even at that time, you know, while we were girls in school, we knew that Father Smith had started a parish here at St. Simon and Jude, and that the school had started, and some of the sisters were already there, of course, when I was in high school, and prayer was added on to the prayers we said as boarders in the school. Prayer was added, the memorare was added for the venture here at St. Simon and Jude, for the school and for the parish. It was added to the morning prayers of the girls in school. And of course, little did I know at that time that one day I'd be here in this place. I had two singular experiences that kind of were the steam behind my vocation. And it was in the summer of 1955, home on vacation, you know, for the summer from the boarding school. And I was out for a walk out on a bog road in Ireland. And, you know, it was just about a mile outside our hometown. There wasn't a lot of traffic around that time because after the war, it took a while for gasoline to get, you know, be plentiful in Ireland, so not that many people had cars. There wasn't much traffic on the road. It was very quiet, very silent. And I was just on a bridge, a little bridge over a river, and I was looking out over the bog, and there are not many trees or anything on a bog. It's bogland. It's just kind of flat, scrubby bushes and everything. So as I stood there, I could see the whole horizon, all around me, no matter where I looked. And I got a sudden feeling that here was God's love, so vast as that, reaching over to the horizons. And so here I was feeling like I'm surrounded by the love of God. I'm in the love of God. I'm in God. And it was a very, very overwhelming experience. I just never had anything like it before. And I still go back to it. It's still as true for me today. When I think of that, I'm convinced, yes, I am in God, and I get those scriptures. I live in Him, we live and move and have our being. All that came alive for me. I began to I'll never understand it, but I experienced it anyway. And this was a great grace. And it made me feel like this is the most important thing in the world, the love of God. Nothing really else matters that much as long as I'm in the love of God. So this was a great gift and a great grace. Excuse me. So now the second great grace I had was that was 1 year before I left high school. That grace on the bridge, and it was like my Mount Tabor moment, my transfiguration moment of seeing God, experiencing God. But the second one was as a senior in the high school, and some of you may remember Sister Teresita. She was here for a long while, and she taught music in the school, and then when she retired she was also teaching 8th grade Latin class, and then she was working down at the St. Vincent de Paul dining room playing the piano and singing for people. And she worked at St. Joseph's Hospital with the newborn babies, cradling them and singing to them, when especially the babies that were kind of, they used to say crack babies, that were born from mothers that had been using drugs, and they were very agitated, so she used to soothe them and sing with them. So Sister Teresita was my high school principal. She was my principal all through high school. But anyway, she used to call in the girls and say, you know, what's the plan for your life? What do you plan now going forward? So I said, oh, I think I'd like to be a home economics teacher, and you know, I loved cooking, I loved sewing, I liked all these kind of homemaking things. So, oh, she said, I thought you might be thinking of entering the convent. And I said, well, you know, it's a thought, but I wasn't thinking, you know. So, and then she put a question to me that really made me search my soul. She said, you know, when it comes to the end of your life, and you know, when you're meeting God, what would you like to be able to say to the Lord? So anyway, I thought about that one, and I said, well, I'd really like to be able to say, I did your holy will, I followed the plan you mapped out for me in life. And when I said it, I knew it was the right answer, but I wasn't really, it kind of surprised me in a way. So, she said to me, Sister Teresita said, go away now and think about that some more. So I went away and I thought about that some more, and I really realized that, yeah, God was calling me to religious life. I think he was, you know, I'm pretty sure now this. And then I went back and thought about the other grace of a year before when I was on the bridge, and I thought, oh my gosh, yes, there is something. God is really trying to tell me something. So, but I wasn't quite ready, you know. I was a teenager with all the other ideas that teenagers have about having a good time, and that time the big dance halls were a big deal, and the big bands, and everybody wanted to go to the dances, and I was crazy about dancing, and I knew all the steps. I knew the quick step and the foxtrot and the slow waltz and the quick waltz and the tango and all the Irish dances, and I was kind of nuts about dancing. And of course, well, didn't hurt if I had a nice, handsome young man leading me around on the dance floor. But anyway, that was like big for me at that time. I was enjoying my teenage years, and it was good. Big family, and all the, you know, my brothers and sisters were in the same, the older ones, you know, all dancing and going, you know, and we were just enjoying life. So I was saying, oh my gosh. Anyway, at the end of that year, well, during the final retreat of that year, we always went to confession, to the priest, during the retreat. It was just a 3-day retreat, but we did a lot of praying and soul searching and meditations and prayer that Sister Teresita would lead us through, And so I went to the chaplain, who was Father Walsh, for confession. And I told him about these experiences and how I thought maybe God was calling me to religious life. And he said, "Oh yes, Dimna, I know you. You should go this September or this October." Whoa, this September or this October. That didn't fit in with my plans for dancing and having a good time. But anyway, God won. God went out, so I entered the convent that year on October 2nd, 1956. And so then, of course, there was all the novitiate training and some more studies and all like that. But then Mother Kieran was the Superior General at the time, and she had been the one that was the first principal out here in St. Simon and Jude. And she called me into her office one day and she said, "I'm sending you to Arizona." I mean, those times you didn't ask any questions, you were sent, you were missioned, you were really sent. So anyway, I said, I wasn't upset or I was kind of excited. My parents had been in America. My parents had lived in New York for about 5 years after they were married, and they always spoke glowingly about their time in America. And so I thought, America is like the promised land. I really, at that point, I didn't think, oh, well, I'll be leaving my family, I'll be leaving my country, and all this. I didn't think about that. But I wound up coming to Arizona in 1959, and I was 21. And I didn't know then. When I waved goodbye at Dublin Airport, that was the last time I would see my father alive in this world. A year later, in 1960, December 22nd, 1960, I got a telegram from my mum that said, "Daddy dead, result of fall." I don't know if people can know what I'm saying. I get emotional. But anyway, that was really the first time in my life that I understood what people meant when they said, "I have a broken heart." Because it really was, it felt that way. But, community, religious sisters, community. The kids were in the school. I went back after Christmas. I didn't take time. Went back. I chose. They said, "Do you want time?" I said, "No, I'll go back." The kids were healing for me. They were bright and bubbly with life, and they just helped me. And the community helped me. The sisters helped me, and I began to read over and over, which a psalm I love, in Psalm 27, where it says, wait upon the Lord and he will sustain you. And I believe it, and I know the Lord did sustain me, and that psalm helped me through also. Because I know it was written for people way back when, but it was also written for me and for you, and for everybody, so wait upon the Lord and he will sustain you. So St. Simon and Jude was a young parish then. It was, as I said before, it had begun in 1953 by Father Paul Smith, a wonderful man from County Cavan, I might add, Ireland. Where else? Anyway, the masses were being held at Maryland School before a church was built, or before even the cafeteria was built here. So the cafeteria, now not Smith Hall, the cafeteria at that time was that block that has the library and the RE offices. That was the cafeteria. It was a whole open, inside open building, and it was the temporary church. Kind of temporarily the church. It was the school cafeteria, and they used it for church after it was built. And then Smith Hall was built, so then Smith Hall became the church. And then, of course, now we have our wonderful cathedral. But, so each year different buildings were being added on to the school, a little more, until all the eight grades classrooms were there. And of course now we have a preschool. And the sisters at first didn't have a convent, of course. The convent wasn't built till 57, so the sisters lived in a little home on Cavalier Drive at the beginning, in walking distance of the church. And they used to be walking to church until, and the priests were in what's now the Lifehouse. But then they exchanged with the sisters because they didn't feel it was good in winter time for the sisters to be walking in the dark over to church. And so the priests went and got some accommodation and gave the little house there that is now the Life House, or the youth house, to the sisters. There were 5 sisters in there with 3 bedrooms, I think, and it was pretty tight quarters, but anyway, they were very happy to have some place. So when I came in 59, the kindergarten room was built that year, and the school clinic, which was over there between the 2nd and 3rd grade, but now it's there are different grades there. Things have moved, more buildings now, and it's a whole wonderful campus. But when I came first, there were no gates or fences around the whole property. Every place seemed so safe. Maryland Avenue wasn't even a through street. It was a dirt road up to the back of the convent, up to the back entrance to the school, over there by the Vincent de Paul. The parking lot wasn't paved, and there were bike racks all along one end of the parking lot. There were 3 deep along this end of the dirt parking lot. Many of the children walked to school. It was safe. Nobody seemed to bother anybody. And there were 900 kids in the school that time. There were about 60 in each class. And that was the cap of the number you could have from the Tucson diocese at that time. And it was all, the tuition was about $30, I think, and with increments of about $5 or $10, depending on how many kids were coming to the school, and how many children in the family. So it was all so new to me, and hearing words like breezeway and patio and black widow, spider, and irrigation ditch, and all these things were, I never heard them before. And and Maryland Avenue, as I said, there was an irrigation ditch. It didn't come through up a dirt road and then an irrigation ditch going on to 27th, all the way over to 27th Avenue. And of course, the kids loved if they could get out at the back of the school to the irrigation ditch, and they'd bring in some water snakes. I remember a kid coming to me with a water snake. I'd never seen a snake. This water snake is on a stick, and I'm scared of my life, but I didn't let on, because if you really showed scare, I'm sure they'd be doing it all the time. But anyway, I was terrified. I remember seeing that snake, but then, you know, we got used to things like that, and when I knew it wasn't dangerous, I was fine. So the ground was really so disturbed because there was building every year and building going on, and so we shook out the ends of our habits before we went into the house, into the convent. The convent was built when I came, and so you could have a black widow, spider, or a scorpion, or a tarantula, or anything. Sometimes our chapel was the place where some of these things came in, because we had an outside door. The sacristy door was an outside door leading out toward the irrigation ditch. So we had to be circumspect before we knelt down in the chapel too. It was different, you know, from what we were used to. So we were the Diocese of Tucson until December 2nd, 1969, when the Diocese of Phoenix was established, and Bishop Edward McCarthy was the first bishop of the Diocese of Phoenix. But before that, you know, the 10 years before that, when I was there, we had to travel to Tucson for most of our meetings, for parochial school meetings and CCD meetings and celebrations at St. Augustine, you know, diocesan celebrations at St. Augustine's Cathedral. A couple of the sisters had learned to drive, but we had to share the car, which was a station wagon, with Father Stapleton, who was the assistant priest at that time. And he always knew the sisters had been out in the car. If he got in and his knees were hitting the steering wheel, he knew the little short sisters had pulled up the seat. But that was just how it was, you know. Nobody minded it. These were the beginnings of things. We weren't all flying around in cars or anywhere. Before we were a diocese and had the Bishop of Phoenix, it was a hard task to explain to children about our diocese, or about what the bishop's role was, or anything. One of the sisters was giving her confirmation class, and she was saying, and our Bishop Green will be here. He'll be here in our very own church of St. Simon and Jude. And one of the kids piped up, a little fellow, and he said, "Oh, is that the guy with that wears the big hat from Tucson?" So we knew, you know, she knew a lot of explaining had to be done before they ever could meet the bishop, or, you know, have the protocols and everything in place before their confirmation. And so a good deal more explaining had to be done. And so easy now with Bishop Olmsted here and our cathedral here, and we don't have to explain to kids, you know, who the bishop is or what the bishop does or anything. So, but anyway, those were beginnings here at Simon and Jude, and we did branch out a little bit later on. We branched out a bit, the sisters, that is, to St. Jerome Parish first. St. Jerome, Father McGovern was at St. Jerome Parish, and he had been looking for sisters here in the United States. He was waiting for some sisters to come, but the time came for school to start in 1965, and the sisters hadn't come yet, and so he asked us would we fill the gap. So we sisters filled the gap. We were over there at St. Jerome for a few years. I was there the first year, and Sister Christine and Sister Bridget was principal of the school for a couple of 3 years, I think we were there. And when we went over there, it was the beginning of that parish too. I mean, their tiling wasn't even on the floor of the school building when we started, you know, and everything wasn't finished. But it was all wonderful and exciting. You felt that you were in a place, and both places, Simon and Jude, that developing and growing, and movement and excitement, and people all wondering how they could help and everything. Like, it was all a beautiful community, family experience. Then a group of us went to Prescott in 1972. I was in that group too. And then in Flagstaff in 76. And we still have a couple of sisters living in Prescott. And our sisters from Flagstaff came back down to Phoenix a few years ago. They retired there. And so we were around in different parts of the diocese, and we were happy to sort of be part of the growing pains and the development of the Diocese of Phoenix. And so currently we are in 10 sisters in the Arizona, connected to Arizona. We have Sisters Thomas and Laverne, who used to be at St. Gregory's. They have a little home in the Phoenix area, and they did some work here in RE and after school program here at Simon and Jude before they finished before their retirement. And we have, of course, we have Sisters Anne and Terry in Prescott. And then we have our Sister Krista, who is part of our SSJ community, but she's missioned to the border at El Paso and Juarez, El Paso, Texas, and Juarez, Mexico. She goes across the border each day and works at a shelter there. And of course at our convent here we have Sister Raphael, Sister Augustine, Sister Elizabeth, Sister Maria, Sister Yolanda, who is at Notre Dame as a campus minister, and then myself. And so we're, after all these years, we're still hanging around. Okay. Our Loretta sisters at St. Gregory's preceded us. They came, I think, to St. Gregory's in 1946. We didn't come here till 54, but they were so helpful to us at the beginning because we needed to get the hang of the American education and how things go. They were helping us, and we were most grateful for their expertise and advice. So having gone through all that, and this is a day of thanks, I do thank God for this wonderful parish, for the wonderful people, for the blessings of the years. And, oh, we can't, we couldn't recount all the beautiful gifts of the people have bestowed on us, and of all their talent and time and patience. But before I finish, I just want to say, about my journey. All of this would never have been possible for me except for the generosity of an old lady that lived in my hometown. She was all alone. She was a widow. She was very, I think she was very lonely. But she used to come to our family, and she'd just chat with my mother a little bit, and then she'd say, would you send a couple of the girls over and play the piano for me, and we'll have tea. And so I was only 11 when this lady passed away. So my older sisters used to go and they'd play the piano, and she'd have a nice tea, and they'd come back and say, oh yeah, we had this kind of cake and we had that kind of cake. And of course I envied them because I was too young to be going yet. But she'd say to me, you'll be coming to me soon, But anyway, she passed away, and we never thought anything of, giving her anything, or my mother her friendliness or anything, only it was just there. But turned out that she left in her will a good chunk of money, a lot, for the education of the girls in our family, the 7 girls. Now some of them were already grown up and educated, but for their settling down in life. But she said of the education, it was to be a gilt-edged education. And apparently my parents figured that Loretta School was a gilt-edged education. And so, and that all the working of the papers and the will and everything was all done by the time I was ready to go to high school. So I think this lady really supported my whole, it meant the world to me. That I could go to a Loretta School, and I'd never have met the Loretta nuns if she hadn't been a generous lady. So I'm just saying, if anyone thinks out there that you might be able to, if you have means to finance a child for a Catholic education, you never know the wonder of the life you're supporting. And so I better stop crying. Everybody will think I'm just a big crybaby, but I am so grateful. Thank you, Mrs. McCullough. I'm so grateful. And I'm truly grateful for my whole life journey, and especially for this wonderful parish and these wonderful people, this wonderful family of St. Simon and Jude. I may be prejudiced, but I don't think there's a parish like it anywhere. And so I'm going to say I'm truly blessed and thankful to be blessed. And God bless all of you out there.